I am Ken White. I serve as lead pastor here at Forest Park, and we're again here in this podcast to talk with people who are involved in mission with us. So we call this Forest Park on Mission, and I'm here with Debra Yonkers, who works with Love and Grace Ministries, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Deb, just welcome. We're
Thank
so
you.
glad that you're here today.
Thank you for inviting us to be a guest.
Yeah. You know, I just always just ask people a little bit about their background. So can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I grew up in Muskegon, Cloverville, so I graduated of Fruitport High School.
All right.
And
Trojans.
Yes, the
Okay.
Trojans. Seems like forever ago. And I married my high school sweetheart, so next year will be 40 years.
Okay.
40 years.
40 years.
And we have two children. I have a daughter in Oklahoma and a daughter here who's only 15. So
Okay.
she's part of Oak Ridge Schools. And after high school, I chose to open art galleries, and as my first passion is to work with the arts, and did that for 22 years and had our unexpected surprise baby, which we'll call that miracle number about 3. And then went back to college and went to Hope International University to become an art therapist.
Oh, really? So just to kind of rewind a little bit, your daughter's names, what are they?
Michaela and Miley.
Okay. And Michaela's the one who's in Oklahoma.
Michaela went to MSU to go into horse management and took her
okay.
internship in Oklahoma, and it's cowgirl country.
Wow.
She's never coming home.
Yeah. It's interesting. We're connected with a few horse persons, one at Crane Hill Ranch, and there's
Yeah.
a family here, the Petersons, who are involved in horses and stuff.
Yeah,
So.
I love using the horse in the art with the work I do,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. Both my girls are in horses. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. So in terms of your involvement in art, are you an artist yourself? Are you an art curator? What's your...
I am an artist. I like to teach, and I haven't really sold. I'm kind of a selfish artist in a sense, where a lot of it's for myself, but I used to sell it more when I had the art galleries. And then when I did ministry, I'm just kind of walking back into it now, where we have a program called Impressions of Hope. So giving people art lessons on how to paint in acrylic, at the same time talking them through how God sees the world.
Yeah. Is that your main medium, painting in acrylic?
Actually not, but it's easy to teach.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So my main medium would be oil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. So you've painted some things, and they're just mainly hanging in your house? Is that
They're
what you're
hanging
saying?
in my house, or I've given them away. I worked for a prison ministry, and I would do an art project for each one of the prisons we went in.
Yeah.
And so opportunities like I used to do painting on mat. We call it mat extensions. I'm so visual. And so I would take someone's image and then add to it and bring it out into the matting and give them kind of a unique piece of artwork. And I used to do that quite a bit. And
Yeah.
I haven't done that much lately.
Yeah.
So.
Did you major in art when you first went to college?
When I first time through college, I thought I was going to be a fine artist. And I had an interest in psychology. And then I had to actually work to pay my bills, so took a little different direction. And I did teach art classes, even in the art galleries, so I got to stay in that world, and I sold artwork for people that were famous from around the world. So it was a nice place to be, and it is a different route to get where I am today, but God uses everything.
Yeah. Well, I have seen that art can be used very powerfully in ministry. I know that we have missionaries in the Evangelical Covenant Church that interact with artists, and it's a great, wonderful thing.
Art and animals, God's creation. Okay, let's just sum it up. God's creation is such a beautiful medium to help people see hope in what life's supposed to be like and what God created, and get them looking at, instead of the dirt and the snow, but the beautiful white of the snow and the glistening diamonds. It's just a shift.
Right.
So.
It really is. And you went to Hope International University, and this is in, I think, California?
Yes, it is in California, Fullerton, California.
Yeah.
And I was able to attend online, and I only was out there to graduate, and that was it.
Okay.
But it was a psychology degree that I was intending to, I received a bachelor's in psychology, but I kept asking the whole time, shouldn't I be a ministry graduate? And they continued to say, no, you're our number one psychology student. Why would you switch topics? And so after I graduated with my bachelor's, I went and got my license as a pastor.
Okay.
And so it really is a combination of both that I just can't imagine how you separate the two. God, the creator, and God of all these wonderful, amazing gifts he's given people. And
Are you licensed in a particular denomination?
I am not. I was originally attending Reformed Church, and I am International Ministry Fellowship, and I have a license in that.
Gotcha.
It's not really a denomination.
Yeah,
so.
I was actually doing a little bit of reading in terms of your background, and I saw that you were involved in ministry at Fellowship Reformed. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you describe what you were doing there?
Really, it was spiritual formation. So I was interim minister while the two of our pastors that had been there for over 20 years left within the same 30 days. So I picked up the spiritual formation. So I did a lot of the adult growth piece. The ministry that we have today existed under the Fellowship Church too. So it was under a different name, but it really was under their covering. And just oh God, goodness, it's been way too long because it started with Unity. I've always been involved in prayer. So I led the prayer formation and reprogrammed the adult growth classes and helped inspire people to work within their gifts and their venues and challenge the deacons and elders to share the gospel.
Right. That's wonderful. Well, I was part of Fellowship Reform when I was in high school, up through college, joined Fellowship, was a member there, and have been deeply influenced by them. I'm very grateful for their ministry. So I think I probably know some of the ministers that you know, too.
Probably.
So that's wonderful. And you're out there as the executive director of Love and Grace, just a little bit down the road from where Fellowship is, right?
Yes, we're 5 minutes down the road. So we're right on Apple. And if you've been around Muskegon for a while, I refer to it as the Gospel Film Building.
Yes, I am.
And if you're not a Muskegonite, then it's Alive on the Lakeshore Building, who's just become owned by the rescue missions. So it's easy to get to. It was an easy access pre-COVID. People on the bus could get there, and we had a couple bus stops there a day, or actually I think every hour. So it's a simple location. Someone actually from Fellowship Church, when I was interim minister, and we finally found our new minister and my position was finished, came up and said, what are you going to do now? And I said, I don't know. I think I go back to my tent ministry like Abraham, kind of carrying everything in the back of my trunk and going place to place. And he said, go find yourself an office. So he's paid for us to be in that building ever since then.
I see. So was it a move from Fellowship Reform to being the executive director of Love and Grace?
It wasn't exactly. I worked for another organization out Battle Creek that had asked me if I could start the ministry here in Muskegon. Then it was called Spiritual Care. That's the Battle Creek organization. And I developed that site here in Muskegon. And then in 2019, 18, they asked if we would become our own entity. So we filed for our own 501c3. So that made me the executive director and the developer and the founder of that organization.
I see. Well, it'd be great for you to just describe Love and Grace to people who are listening to us and watching us.
Sure. Love and Grace is not what most people expect, but we're a group of encouragers, which would be more like peer-to-peer care. And sometimes people want to either call us counselors or prayer warriors, and it's all of the above, but not. And what that means is we're a ministry that is a listening ministry to help people work through life's hurts. a new word today is ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. They've really identified that when people have gone through stuff in their childhood, it affects the outcome. It makes them do things they wish they didn't do. And so we are a biblically based ministry that helps people work through those. So the best way to say is, you know what, when you have trauma and you have deep loss and it's more than your friends can handle, we listen to that and we help you build truth, hope, identity, and purpose in who God created you to be, to help you work through those things.
Right. And what's the age range of people that you're working with?
Our oldest client right now, I believe, is 87, and our youngest one's 4.
Well, okay.
So I do kind of say 4 and up. It is a biblically based ministry, but we have camps. We use horses, we use arts, we use games to reach people where they are. So a lot of people do come to us with some knowledge of God, usually confused.
Yeah.
Or challenged because life treated them so poorly. But we're able to stand on truth and show them the true loving God that they're wondering where he went. And but we've also been challenged. I've worked in medical centers where can you please reach people where they're at? More like a chaplain would be. And there'd be times where we're working with somebody. I'll give you one example. He was an Indian, very into his heritage. Grew up not knowing he was Indian. He thought he was from Mexico. And he turned against God. He grew up in a Catholic school even. Turned against God once he discovered his parents lied to him about his heritage. To protect him is what it was. He was so cute. He would come in and he's like, well, see, God's not real. We believe in the created. And I said, that's awesome. I do too. So to find a place where you can relate, if you have a created, you must have a creator. Yeah. And he's like, oh, okay. So he'll come back with something again the next week.
Did he know which Native American tribe he was from?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I don't remember details well, but it was Muskegon.
Okay.
So, and he works, they have land up in Montague, I think.
Oh, I see.
But
It was a Native American tribe from the state of Michigan.
Yes.
Like a Chippewa or Ojibwe or something
Yeah.
like that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And unfortunately, even today we have a lot of people that struggle with their identity, with bullying, with people making judgments. And we need to find out what they understand and where they're at. And that was what I was challenged with in that medical place too, is to understand where they're at and where they're coming from so we can show them the love of God in a way they understand it.
Well, I was seeing that you had a endorsement from the Oak Ridge superintendent, and I just watched that. It was more of a general endorsement for all nonprofits who are working, and so I think that from visiting you before, that you're involved in that side of town with Orchard View and Oak Ridge, and Orchard View is where I went to high school, and so is it mainly when you're in that school district, it's those two schools, or are you all throughout Muskegon County?
Well, I would tell you, I think we counted, okay, I might be wrong, but in the teens, how many children we've seen from different school districts. Oak Ridge Schools has a special place because we have a sponsor, unfortunately. That's the only school we have a sponsor for, is what I mean by unfortunately.
Okay.
So we can pay a team to go into the school during the day and meet the students. It is so needed in every district. What keeps us from being able to do it is having a sponsor in every district.
So they are going through what you termed as ACEs. Could you again say what ACEs stand
ACEs
for?
are adverse childhood experiences, and there's a questionnaire. It only has 10 questions on it, but it's things like, has anyone in your family ever been incarcerated? Have you seen your mother swore at, hit, thrown? Have you... anyone in your family that's been abused? Have you been abused? And have you gone without food and clothing? So it's kind of a short inventory. It focuses under the age of 18. And from my experience, almost everyone we deal with have a locked-in belief about themselves because of an experience that happened in childhood Probably more under 8, 6 years old.
A locked-in belief, like what would that be?
A locked-in belief. So, tormenting thoughts are thoughts that go through your head over and over again, and they're often based off of a life experience that made you believe something about the world and often about yourself that doesn't line up with what God would say about you. So if you're created for a wonderful purpose, you were created and God has a plan for you. So if an adverse experience, I'll give you one because she shares her story a lot, is Brenda. Brenda is about 50 years old, I think, when we met her originally. And Brenda had... she's almost blind. She's a writer. She has very little memory of childhood. And in the time she was seeing us, she was also going to a psychologist. She had 2 children, one a teenager, and I think the other one was probably 7, 8 years old. And she came in because her children were so naughty and family issues that they were having at home. So we were seeing the whole family. We actually started out seeing the children and then started seeing Brenda, and encouraged her to go through the program so she'd know what the children were learning. Well, Brenda's memories came back from childhood in that time period, and Brenda had been horribly abused by neighborhood boys, and she luckily was going to us and a counselor at the same time and to work through these issues. But she come to know why she has so much anger, and actually she has so much hate, and she actually wasn't portraying the love she thought she was portraying to the family that represented who God was. Yeah. And we were able to help her now build on truth. What's the truth? She believed that she was ugly and worthless. That was her tormenting thought. That was her belief that didn't line up with what God would have created her to be.
Right.
So, perfect example, another little girl named Gracie, she's also can be found on our website. She was born addicted to drugs. Her mom was on several and was still nursing her after childbirth. Gracie's mom had given custody to Grandma, or Grandma fought for custody several times. Her father had passed away from alcohol abuse, and Gracie has some side effects also. We met her in the Oak Ridge School District. So she was coming to our program for several years. And at times, she wasn't allowed to see us because if she wasn't behaving in class, she wasn't allowed to come into the program because she liked it. What ends up happening is Gracie has a successful day. Every day is her day to come see Empowered Kids, which is our school program. And she was so excited. She'd go home and teach Grandma about what she learned that day. And so we can still teach really healthy principles when we're in the public school and good ways of thinking and doing things. And you can teach them about love, hope, joy, purpose. Yeah. You can walk through all that. Yeah. And she... It was several years of working with Gracie, but Gracie ends up being a top student at school. That's she great. Was failing and turned into a success story. Grandma got permanent custody of her and gave her a stable home, but she needed to have that soul spiritual connection.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when you're talking about the age range from really young to older, is the process of intake and then the process of working with them, is it similar and yet very different, or very different and unsimilar? How would you describe that?
What they need is exactly the same.
Okay.
So the same identity. When we're working with somebody on the Christian side of the program, we teach them who they are in Christ, as well as helping them discover they have a personal identity that God gave them, which flows into their purpose. But so it's very much the same. With the children, we do a lot of hands-on crafts. Obey your parents. So we'll make two boxes of pudding. So Tina, one of our encouragers, did this. I'm like, you're doing pudding today? She says, yeah. One, they get to make however they want to. The other one, they have to follow the instructions, and then they get to taste both of them. So one turned out and one didn't. So we do the same thing using a horse. So if I am walking a horse And we had a little boy, we'll call him Zach. And I keep walking the horse, and I am unsafe, and I'm not following the rules. That horse weighs 1,000 more pounds than I do. And it can run me over. And it'll keep her safe if she actually learns rules and learns to, we were walking over a bridge, so learns to walk over the bridge. It'll protect her from falling off and not be pushy. It'll protect me. And one little boy, he's in the audience, and I had all the kids, okay, what did you learn at camp today? And he says, you can trick us. And I said, what are you talking about? You taught us that we need to follow rules, and that's what keeps us safe. So you're just kind of tricking us, a nice way of teaching us what truth is. And I'm like, very smart. Very smart. So, so we can use props and games, but teach the same principle.
Yeah. Where do you do your horse work?
So the horses we do at camp. So we have kids camp in the summer. It's at the Muskegon County Fairgrounds, and it's an all-day camp. And next year it'll be hopefully more than one day. But we have 25 to 50 children. It takes us about 20 adults to work with 50 children, and the kids have a ball.
Yeah. So a person can come into your program and be there for quite a while, right? They can. It's not like you've got 8 sessions and you're out. It sounds more like a relationship that you're building with them.
It is a relationship, and what's super different. So in counseling, if to go back to the psychology side of things, I'm looking for a diagnosis. I'm looking for a label. It goes against our Christian beliefs to give people labels, in effect, that becomes their identity. So if you have ADHD, you probably are a good leader and you're able to multitask. But if I give you ADHD as a child, then that gives you a reason to quit and not participate. And so I'm sorry, I lost track of my question to stay focused. So we see some of them for a longer period of time if they have more difficulty and or have more need. Other people we might see like 3 times. So it just depends on what the need is.
Yeah.
I have to say it's usually on the longer than the shorter.
Yeah, I would think so with adverse childhood experiences. They are not something that you can get rid of very easily.
And the children at school, if we get them, usually school starts us in October after they've had a little time with a student. We plan to spend 30 weeks with that child. So a lot of times, for example, donors, we don't charge for these programs, so it's all donor sponsored. Well, how many kids can you see with my money? I'm going to see in a day about 8 children at the school, but for 30 weeks. And if you take that, the going rate right now for some of the counseling is $180 an hour. And we're seeing them for at least 30 minutes. And we have to make them go back to their classroom. But the schools so need this missing piece of the puzzle that they're willing to let us come in, be in the school, have a classroom, and see these students privately every week to try to get them help.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It really is. One of the things that I noticed you have on your website, which is loveandgrace.org, right?
Yeah.
We'll put that right as I'm saying that so that people can take an opportunity to go and look at it. One of the things that you talk about in your mission is the unique needs of the spirit and soul. And you've been talking about that a little bit, but I wondered if you could just talk about that a little bit. What are the unique needs of the spirit and the soul for people? Well,
what people don't usually understand is there's a pushback against psychology. So if you're doing counseling, you either like it, majority of people are going to say, I did that, or I don't want to do that. So there's a stigma with that. But psychology actually works in the soul piece. The soul is your mind, will, emotions, your life experiences. So it's your personal identity piece that everything that happens in you, around you, to you is interpreted in your mind, and you have your beliefs that come out of that and your experiences. That's the soul part of our body. We have our body part in physical. Most of us acknowledge that and understand that. We get sick or we cut a finger or something. We understand the body. We can see the body reflected in the mirror. And the spirit side is what what do you believe? Do you believe in God the Father, Son, Holy Spirit? Do you believe in other gods? What do you believe? And what spirit is running your life? So that spirit is the side that you invited in. And as Christians, we invite in Holy Spirit by believing in Jesus Christ. But not everybody does that. There's some people that intentionally oppose that. So when we're working with somebody, we're working with the soul and the spirit part of their being, and willing to walk through as far as they want to walk through to explore that. I love to think of us, the 87-year-old person I was talking about. I taught him how to read the Bible last week. He reads the Bible, but he doesn't know anything about the concordance. He doesn't know anything about a study Bible or the little, actually, I don't know what it's called, the little column in the middle with all the little letters, and you can look up, find your other scripture proof. He knew he had been told that, what does the Bible say? And he had no idea how to ever find anything. Yeah. So we like to be that safe place where you can ask the extra questions. Maybe you are involved in a church, but on Sunday you didn't find a place.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful ministry. I'm wondering, what are the opportunities and challenges that you feel like you have ahead of you in the year 2022 and 2023?
Well, I just applied for a grant, so I went, no wonder I'm so busy. We have 12 volunteers, plus another 7 on a board that volunteer, and we have 4 employees, myself included, 2 full-time and 2 very part-time. We need people. I need men. Last September, I hired our first male staff person, and the floodgates opened. We have men calling and wanting help, so we need men to assist, to learn to be prayer partners and encouragers. That's a big challenge, is having people, and we're starting to run into a space problem where we're overlapping. We have 2 rooms to see people, and they're starting to get full. We're running 50 to 80 to 90% capacity on some days. So that's one part, because we want to keep the ministry free so that anybody that wants spiritual guidance, Christian based, so can come in and get it, receive care for as long as they need to without us having to limit it. So donors are huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that sometimes when we're talking about this particular problem, with the problem of growth, people will say that's a nice problem to have, and yet it's still something that you have to solve, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we had almost 200 more clients in an 8-month period than we had in the previous matching 8-month period, or sessions. It's hard to count clients, but it's time spent with somebody. Yeah.
That's great. Well, we're praying for you and be supporting you, and we're really glad to be in partnership with you, and we look forward to what God will continue to be doing through your ministry.
Thank you.
Yeah.